Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to another Supercoach Insider podcast. My name is Swizz, here with our Friday night live show. As you can see, I'm still trying to set everything up here, but yeah, it's good to be with you guys. It was awesome last night. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. There is so much happening. Teams, Draftstars, as always, Supercoach. I don't even know where to begin, but as always, check us out on all our social media platforms, in particular YouTube, Spotify. Get in touch with us via X, Supercoach Insider 100, or Swizz26 for me directly. We'll kick off with the Draftstars for tonight. I think that's the easiest way to do it. And hey, Connor, thank you for jumping on. There's quite a few questions already. So I'll get into probably the main Supercoach, but I do like to touch on the Draftstars as a daily fantasy. We don't have a huge following for that, but there is enough people who always ask me about it. So I'll spend a couple minutes just quickly talking about that. I looked at my team last night at halftime and I was flying. I think I was inside the top 30 and looked like I was going to have a really good cash. And then Blight went off. And then the Tigers absolutely started to destroy the Blues, and my whole Draftstars team went to the gutter. But you know, I'm happy to give up the 50 cents for what happened there. But I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. Yeah, so Draftstars tonight. It's actually a bit of a tough one because sometimes I'd like to try to get a few cheapies in here, and there's not that many cheapies standing out. I don't like the dual ruck setup as well. I don't like picking, a guy that's going to share the ruck and probably only going to go smaller scores. Like Draper has the odd decent game, but if it is, it's usually why he sold ruck. So Nick Bryan as well. So it's kind of hard to go pick both of them. So you've got to kind of just pay up for Lloyd Meek tonight, even though he's probably just that solid guy too. I'm like, could I probably save money with Meek? I know he's obviously a really good super coach option. So have considered maybe it is still just Bryan just because but Meek looks so good. That's the hard thing about it. So, can Bryan, how close can Bryan get? Maybe Draper probably plays that a little bit more forward. So maybe we'll do take the risk. Maybe we'll go Bryan because I was looking at Lloyd Meek in my team, but looking at my side, I'm just like, just hate the cheaper options tonight in here. The midfield, let's go there. I think there's a few obvious to stand up. Zachy Merritt's obviously an absolute goat when it comes to this. The one poor score in sort of his last was that kind of couple months. So yeah, especially if he gets kind of limited attention. He's absolute superstar. Nick Martin is very solid at this type of game as well. Does rack up the pill. Just a different kind of role change. I want to kind of stay with him. Will Day's an interesting one. Obviously they haven't updated the score from last time, but geez, last week he was awesome. How much attention he sort of gets will be interesting. So we'll go Merritt. We'll go Day. And hopefully he continues on with his great run. Because of Warple missing tonight, I expect some more time for either McKenzie or Nash for the midfield. So I'm actually going to get on both of them. I did have a look at Sardis, but I think that's probably the safer way to go. I don't mind Massimo as well against his former club, but I think McKenzie and Nash are the two I want to go with those outs in there. In regards to then the forward line and defence, so the forward line does have Durham and it does have Ben Hobbs in here tonight. So there is a world you can kind of go both. I'm going to have a look at Hobbs now. Originally, when I was looking at this, I was picking Lloyd Meek, so I might have a little bit of cash left over because I've tried to free up the $5,000. So Jackson Pryor, I like better than Ben Reid. Playing off that half back, obviously season campaign, and it's come from the Lions there. So that's pretty good. It leaves us with an average amount of sort of $9,000 here. So you can kind of go two ways. If you do go the cheaper option, go Zach Reid, it opens up 13,000 in your forward line. But unfortunately, that's just short of Durham. So now that we've got to kind of do an alteration, which probably annoys me a little bit. The other way you can sort of do it is go forward line and try to look at one of these cheaper options. Now, you could go with someone as cheap as Kako, but I don't like picking. I'm sort of against these small forwards, but Nick Watson actually has done reasonably well. He does have the odd decent game in here. So, I kind of don't mind that so much, especially if these Hawks guys are going to push up because of the outs that they, with Warple being out. So if you do take, say, Nick Watson, what's the kind of the options in the back line? Again, I'm sort of missing Massimo, but somebody like a Jarman Impey, who, last week did run through the midfield. Usually his scores aren't so good, but did have that little uptick and played such a good game last week. So he is one definitely I could consider there, and I don't mind the look of that. Again, if I kind of do take that sort of cheaper option, and we forfeit to go, say, maybe it's a Kako type, which again, I don't know. If he's not kicking goals, I'm not so sure on it. It's more what can it do? And if it can't, like Scrimshaw was great last week, but if it can't get me up to Massimo anyway, I'm probably not that interested in it. The only other thought I was kind of thinking was maybe a Ben Mackay, just because that defensive option, the Hawks don't have a really good forward line. It's really sort of Chol, so he could take some intercept marks tonight. So if I go Mackay, and maybe it is the case we go Zach Reed and hope that Essendon probably outdoes them in the back line, with the fact that they've only got the one real key tall, it does actually let us get up to either Sam Durran or, more importantly, Dylan Moore, who runs through that midfield, and who's actually a really good scorer in there. So that's the way I'm going to actually go with Dylan Moore. So Hobbs, Moore, Zachy Merritt, Will Day, Nash, and McKenzie in that midfield. I'm going to go the two Bombers, and let's take a punt on Nick Bryan. Though, if you want Lloyd Meek, you could easily go more down to, say, a Nick Watson type. So I think that's one way of going. So that's where I am for the Draftstars tonight. So good luck for those daily fantasy players that play that. I know a few people obviously do message me regarding there. All right, we will get onto the Supercoach part of the conversation. I should really go actually the AFL teams part, because, geez, there's been a few rookies named that we kind of were expecting, a few others that we might have not been expecting as much. So I think that's probably the best way to sort of go through it and go, okay, where are we here with these AFL teams? Because especially in regards to St Kilda, yeah, it's a kind of very interesting one. Firstly, for tonight, the subs are Gresham, and the Hawks have gone Frost again too. So that'll be an interesting one, where the fact that they have gone Frosty again, which makes, what happened last week, where Sicily's probably going to be the one that pushes forward. So yeah, that'll kind of be interesting there to see at what point is that activated. Alrighty, so we have, and we don't really need to worry about these sort of games because we have gone through them, but the big one is here, Adelaide versus St Kilda. So many ins, so many outs. Yeah, it is a great one. So we've got in regards to let's go St Kilda. So the big one is Boxshall has been left out. I know a lot of people were looking at him. So that was obviously an obvious one. Hasty, and then we've got Sean Makers, Jones, Clark, and Boyd as the extended bench. Now, do I really think they're going to put a ruck forward as the sub? Probably not. Some of them are, for me, from a Saints supporter that I trust, is Zach Jones is probably the most likely sub out of that, which would be great. Hasty is the one that I kind of like better than, say, a Max Hall. Even though Max Hall is named, they do still have some ins coming in soon, St Kilda. So we obviously know Max King at some point. So who have they got missing out of there? Butler, Higgins. So that there's some couple of forwards, and then even Liam Henry, who can obviously play wing or half forward. So they'll be coming back at some point soon, which probably makes me a little bit more worried about a Max Hall type, because he gets pushed out, where maybe a Hasty and also Liam O'Connell, who's been named on field, they don't have me as worried much, because Sinclair is back. They've named him in the midfield, but he is back. So, and they've also named Sean Makers. So the fact that they've named their full defence as it's going to sit, because long-term injuries aren't going to come back like Dougal Howard anytime soon. So I don't really see too many changes happening there for the Saints. So that gives me a little bit more confidence in picking, say, O'Connell and picking a Hasty. So there's something to think about there. Sid Draper. Now, there was some talk this week. I think Rob said that Sid Draper would start as sub. They do have Daniel Curtin there, who's probably the obvious choice. But yeah, the young fella Draper could start as sub as well. So just a little bit of worry there about the Crows. If you have Draper in, the great thing is Melbourne have named a ton of rookies that you can actually downgrade to. So I know a lot of people do like Draper, and I do appreciate all these questions coming up here, so we'll get into that in a moment. So if you want to have Draper in your team, he is named sub, then you can just pivot to, say, a Langford, a Lindsay, a Harry Sharp. All of them will come under that price, which are cheaper than what Draper is. So that's not a bad way to kind of set up your team if that's the way you want to go. Tom Campbell is on the emergency, so no worried about there. Gorn will be doing sole ruck against Lockie Keefe. And then you've got Aiden Johnson as the backup. They've also named Jack Henderson. So this is where we've got to watch out and see what who is named as the sub, because Jack Henderson at 99k would be awesome if he's named on field. They've also got Matthew Jefferson named at centre half forward, who's another one of these debut games, and look how many of them are. There is 5 guys there making the 6. No, 5. So 5 guys making their debut, and then Harry Sharp's making his debut for Melbourne after coming from Brisbane. So a lot to watch there. And then again, over in the GWS side, James Leake is named on that interchange bench, could be a sub. So could Connor Stone. So we need to have a watch of that and maybe have a plan around both of them. And the fact that the Giants have a lot of players coming back after their bye, we need to be mindful. The other one, obviously, the big in is Tom Green. So Finn Callaghan, I've probably looked at fading him now, and actually he has come out on my side, just because I want to have a downgrade option potentially and see how Finn Callaghan goes again with the Giants with Tom Green in there. And then the other last one is West Coast, and with Archer Reed being named. So he's been named up in the forward line. There is actually Oscar Allen and Waterman both named, and Archer Reed. So that is interesting. And then Williams has been the one left out for Matt Flynn. My boy Jack Hutchinson is named in the guts. I'm very interested to see how he goes. So is Bailey Humphrey too. So a little bit of interest in those games, which is interesting. And then this is what it leaves me for now, but there is potentially a bit of change. It all comes down to my rookies for tomorrow. So I think I'm working in the morning and then off just in time for the Geelong and Fremantle game. So she's all Zorko. I did look about dropping him down, Bailey Dell, Tommy Stewart, those sort of guys to free up cash. I'm not. I really don't like that, because then I'm left without a line, and their draw is too good to be left without one. So stays in there. Shorty, I'll talk about in a second. Roberts, Perryman, and O'Connell has come in as that D6. I'm going to leave Zachy Reid. I thought about bringing Zachy Reid onto the field and then just sort of muck around with it there. But there is still a small chance Bo Allen comes in for me, so I can loophole to take TDK score. I'm still a little bit on the fence. I'm waiting to see last minute kind of what I want to do. So I can believe that for now. So O'Connell can sit there. Reid, he's fine at D7. Trainer was fine. I'll talk about him in a second as well. Still Sarong, Rosie, Oliver, Chera. And then I've gone a bit more cheaper. So as I said, Finn has come out for the other Finn O'Sutherland, who is meant to be playing off the half-back line, which will be interesting. Noddy, Sardis, and Nevitt. Hasty, Camperoli, and Henderson. And this is the big thing where I might need to free up a little bit of cash in the forward line, because Hasty and Henderson are in my side at the moment. But if they're named sub, I need obviously a backup plan for now. And so I'm looking at playing around with that. My boy Nate the Tank was awesome second half, but Gorney still got the captaincy on him, and I'll sort of decide about that over the next 24 hours. It's hard to risk a 148, but Gorn in the wet against Keith, I don't know if I want to avoid that, because that could be massive. And it's always hard to sit there and go, well, Gorn could get an injury early and you're risking anything up to like 130 points, maybe even a full 148. But the fact that, there's a flip side where Gorn could go over 200. We did see this a couple of years ago when he went up against the Lions ruckman, which has just escaped me who it was that day. Was at Fort, and absolutely destroyed him. So, we know Gorney at his best can absolutely dominate and he wants to start the season off well, lead his team. Boyd's still in there for now. I did tinker a little bit with Archer Reid, but I think Boyd's the safer pick and the cheaper as well. So, and then Horn Francis, Rankin, little bit of cold feet about him, but he should be top 6. So I'm happy to keep him there. McRae, Sanders is the one that has come in with the money that I've got now with Finn from the GWS coming out. God, I lost my way there. So Sanders come in, but he's the one that is most likely to drop out if I want the cash. Yes, he's named in the Dogs midfield. I'm not as loving it as much as a few other people talking to me about it. So it's just, it's probably a bit of a situation of what I kind of want to do there. But for now, I had the money, so I may as well go Sanders and go up. But I am looking at maybe going down to, say, a Powell Pepper type, if that frees up the money to help my midfield. The fact that he's named in the guts, why Butters is out, I think he's in the leadership role. I quite like him. I know a few other people don't like him as much, but he's starting to come sort of in vogue with me there. And yeah, so that's kind of where I'm going with that. Daniel and Davidson, Hewitt and Stone are there. My boy Patton is dropped out. I'm kind of waiting to see what happens with that Swans team tomorrow. Bice has come in, so is there a chance that Patton's the one that subs? A chance that Bice is? I just want to kind of see how that eventuates. And Stone's also a little bit of a sub risk now, which is a bit frustrating, but we will kind of see how that plays out. So there's a lot of moving parts. I do say it's a fluid situation, and against all my willpower, I have succumbed to Matt Flynn coming in because I've had the cash freed up. I didn't want the ruckman there. I didn't want the R3, but now that Williams isn't in that side, even though I don't think he's going to go that well against Wits, it's kind of nearly too hard to miss him. So that's how I've got it at the moment, guys. The big two, and I'll get to all your questions in a moment because there is a ton of them coming through, and I do appreciate it, guys. So last night, for me as a Richmond supporter, wow. I think at quarter time, expected as I expected. You know, we're going to get pumped here. Who cares? We're getting to see the kids. Sammy Lawler, what a star. I'm still want to see another week from him because he's playing majority forward. And it's a bit like how I think Langford's going to play as well. So kid's going to be great. If he's only going to put up, say, a 60 next week and that, I think it can miss. If he does continue to push up that, like try to push up the midfield or get involved in the forward line and puts up a great score, it's going to probably be hard to ignore. So I've kind of also looking at my team, and this is where Sanders probably drops out, that even though I put him in for Finn Callahan before and freed up that money for Flynn, I kind of want some money there, or I kind of want it to be a Draper or a Langford or somebody like that. So in case in 2 weeks' time, Laylos puts out another good score next week, plays well, that I can maybe do the side swap. So looking at that, Nank's first half was awesome, but it's funny that once Richmond got on top, he actually fell out of the game a bit. So his score could have, at one point it was looking like he's going 150 here, and the fact he only put up a 114, his DT was way better than his Supercoach. So, you know, that was great. The whole second half, like it's sort of nearly a blur. I nearly had to rewatch it because it's just amazing how like the boys played. Chera, awesome first half, dropped off a little bit, still got the 106, so I wouldn't be too disappointed there as an owner. Jaden Short I think he was 62 at halftime, just flying. So when Carlton were belting Richmond, Jaden Short flying. When Richmond did the unthinkable and actually took the game to it and kicked 9 of the next 11 goals, Jaden Short couldn't get near it. Tom Brown was stealing kickouts out off him. He still got more than his break even. I don't expect that from my boys every week. I expect us to probably get flogged again next week against Port. Well, you know, flogged for the first time this season, I guess. So I feel like if we're getting flogged, Short's getting more of that ball, and hopefully he can have a repeat of that first half that he did against the Blues. So I would hold fire for Short, and this is why Finn Callahan has come out of my side, because he is an obvious one where I get a week to look at Finn. I get another look at Short, and I get actually 2 looks at Short because Short's not going to lose value. Like he'll put up 80 the next couple of weeks. So worst case scenario, Finn Callahan, if he goes 120, awesome. And then if he doesn't with Tom Green, it's a regression. Cool, I can look at something else. But then Short 2 weeks at him, and then when Finn Callahan is coming off his bye, and if his break even is good, and where he's like, okay, we've got to get this guy in, well, then I can just move Short and then move some pieces around. And that's why I'm still kind of looking at maybe Bo Allen, maybe keeping Patton in there so I can move things around so that one of them can go into the back line, and then Short can go into Callahan, and Callahan just comes into my midfield. So I am still considering that. But you've got to take into account that first half breakdown when Carlton would up by 41 points, dominating the game, Short on fire. Second half, 23 points. Now, I think most realistics out there will be thinking Richmond aren't going to kick 11 out of 13 goals or whatever we kick and do that every week. So it's something to really consider if you're a Short owner. So just a little bit of thought. Also, a little bit of a left field, and I did mention this when I was on the podcast with Supercoach with DR. I mentioned in my Richmond pod, Jack Ross as an absolute draft smoky this year. I know some people will message me. I got him really late. Awesome. Could have played any better last night. He was. It's probably be interesting to see how the coaches and the Brownlow votes go, because the Conning superstar, awesome, 148, great night. But Jack Ross might have been the best on ground because obviously he helped the Tigers get the win. If he comes out and scores 110 plus next week, now I don't think Jack Ross is going to probably back that up with that sort of score. If he does at 310K, and it's a situation where he only needs to score, I think, 40 over the next 2 weeks to make his break even. So if he came out and scored 120, he's already 80 points above his break even. And on the calculations there, I think he's already making like 30K. And then he still has another week to make cash. So a couple of little plans here in the back of my mind. And that's why Sanders actually came into my side, because I'm like, hey, I can kind of move some pieces around. And if Sanders doesn't work out, and hypothetically, if a Jack Ross or even a Jack Silvani who went 100, if one of these guys kind of goes to the point where you go, oh, wow, this guy's going to make 90K or 80K in a week, we've just got to get him. It is just sort of trying to set up in case that situation comes in. It's more unlikely than likely, but the fact that they've both banked a really good score first week, it's not out of the realms that it could happen. So I do try to kind of think around these issues right now, and then I've got sort of a fallback plan for them. So hopefully that answers everything with my team. And I said the only thing I'm kind of thinking is maybe it's Bo Allen that comes in to take that score. Probably, the hard thing there is if I want to kind of set it up with Short, it's got to be in the midfield, and then I've got to lose one of these midfield spots, and then I've got to put Sanders down. So it does make it slightly difficult there, but like it can be done. Maybe even if it's Nevitt, like if Nevitt gets named sub, maybe I just bank the 57 from Camperoli and then just put Bo and Allen there anyway. Bo's got the flu, but he did lose a bit of weight with that flu this week, so it might not be a 1 weeker. It could be like a 2 or 3 weeker. So I am a little concerned with that. And again, as I said, Gawn, it's a unique situation up against Keith. Like, what's the worst case Gawn? Like, is he still going to go like 120? Like, cool, I lose 20 points. I'm like, it's not the end of the world if that happens, but I just think that could be interesting. All right, guys, I know you've got a ton of questions out there, so let's get into it, because that's the most important thing. And the game is coming up, and you want to lock these things in. All right, Hobbs versus Garcia. Garcia, I am completely off that pick. Reason is the Saints have named Sinclair back, and he's back in the midfield. They've still got guys coming back. He's named on the half-forward line. I've got grave concerns. So his CBAs were awesome last game in the preseason. They're going to drop back now with Sinclair named in the guts. And the fact that the Saints have named halfbacks like Sean Maker, and they've got Hasty in that side as well, and they've named O'Connell. They've got options down there, so it looks like Sinclair is going to play guts, and they need him to play guts by the look of their team. So Garcia, I'm off, because I feel like he's playing more half forward and pushing up as that 4th or 5th guy. Hobbs, like, I don't like the Hobbs pick either. I think there's other options out there. Maybe you could even put one of these forward mids in there, and there's plenty of rookies. But if you're going to choose between and go Hobbs, if that's all you're giving me there, Ben. I've said hello to you, Connor. Matty, so his mate, who to field at M8, Sardis, O'Driscoll, or Nevitt? Well, I guess if you're choosing between the three, like in a perfect world, can you maybe loophole Sardis? But I think you've got it in the order there: Sardis, O'Driscoll, and then Nevitt. I've told everybody about my love about the Freo boys and the Noddy. Noddy's probably not the greatest this week because it's a small ground. It's not going to suit him on the wing. So I think Sardis is the better option this week. But yeah, like I've got all three on my side, and it's just a question of Nevitt, if he gets named sub or not. Like, they have brought in our Jai Clark, who he was meant to be the next big thing. We'll see, he could still make it, but we'll wait and see. But there's a chance that he gets sub. If Nevitt's the sub, well, yeah, Nevitt, you're out of my side. It's a bit like why Levi Ashcroft. As much as I keep thinking about it, like I'd love him in there, but I was pretty cold on him most of the preseason. I brought him in because I was getting too much flack about it, and out he goes again. So I feel like I'm a little bit more happier with that. Take the Connings VC and Donut, or Cherry Captain and Boyd on the bench. The hard thing is who's your donut? So Archer Reed's playing, who was the obvious one. Tom Sims has already gone. So you're kind of looking at these ruck guys, and then it's just Tom Campbell. And I've been having some argument with some Melbourne people just before. Some saying, well, we're just going to put their new guy Johnson in the ruck. And I'm like, well, then there's no way they're putting AJ up against the season ruck if Gorm was a late out on any given week. Tom Campbell's been brought in for that reason. So I don't mind the idea if you've got Gorn and then you have Tom DeConning there. Not Tom. I'm going to keep Tom Campbell there. That it's a great, because Gorn laid out, Tom Campbell just comes in. But if you're not, and in your case, you've got Cherry anyway. So there's no reason for you to have Tom Campbell, because he's not backing up anyone. He's not handcuffed to anyone, and it's a lot to pay for a guy in the ruck. So there's not really any other real obvious. Boxall, the problem is with St Kilda, he's already out of the side, and there's plenty of people Saints players to still come back in. So I don't like him anyway. So it's only Bo Allen. And then you kind of could be playing one short through the next couple of weeks, but I do expect him to play because we know the Eagles were happy to trade back because they were pretty confident they were going to get Allen, gave up the chance for Jagger Smith to work out what they wanted, and everything worked out for the Eagles. Great. So they're going to give this guy games. The problem is now Elijah Hewitt and some of these other options in. Does Bo Allen start as a sub? It could be a real slow burn. So, I'm with Abs. I was talking to him about this, the Godfather. We do like to try not pick non-playing players first week if possible, unless it's a ruck option like a Boyd if he wasn't named. So I'm cherry up against English. Like, it's probably still going at least 120. Okay, cool, you lose 20 odd points. It's annoying, but at the same time, is that better in the long term, the fact that you've got playing players who are all making cash, that you're happy to sacrifice 20 points if that's the case? Lethal. My wife would say plenty. I did actually come home from the game. So I watched it on the train home when I was traveling home. And then I got home. I watched the first half and then I was spent because I did work yesterday morning at some ridiculous hour in the morning. And then I got up. I was listening to Talkback Radio. Geez, Talkback Radio was good today. And then I said to the other half, I know we have to go out, but I'm playing the Talkback because that's going to be so much good. Watch the mini with her, and then I put on the replay again. It's like stopped by many people while I was out and about at the shops today. It's just not going to, got to enjoy it because it was just not expected. I think it was our equal fourth best comeback in maybe the history of the club. It's just ridiculous. Sardis is not the sub, mate. So he's not. It's Gresham. So I've actually got to look at that because I think I've got him maybe in a draft side somewhere. But yeah, Gresham isn't. So Sardis will start on the bench with Hobbs, Bryan, and Dersma. And that might be just a little bit. That's going to be a mistake. They've named Dylan Chill in the ruck. Yeah, good on your AFL app. That's good. And and Frosty for the Hawks. It's good. Hey, Kev. And Kev, thank you for asking me about cricket. I actually ended up playing in the semi-final last week too, mate. So didn't go my way, but I ended up getting an extra game, which was good. I've gone up from Sardis to Will Ashcroft and Fraser down to Pryor. What do you think? It's not the worst move. I get it because you're probably that line player. I haven't been that hot on Will Ashcroft, but we know he's going to play guts. It's not a bad one. Like, Sardis going to make money, but I can understand a little bit of the risk, your thoughts there, but I don't really see too many people actually pushing Sardis outside of maybe Parrish coming in, but the fact that Hobbs' name, well, he's the one that goes first. And then the Pryor will be sold. Like, I looked at Pryor, just don't see the worth of really paying the 170K for a guy who's probably going to go 60 when I can probably just get a guy who's like 120 who's going to probably do similar or maybe go 50. But he's not the worst pick. I don't see as much of the upside with him. But I think Fraser down to Pryor, it's not going to be that far different to what you're probably going to get. Maybe it's like 20, 30 points. Will Ashcroft Sardis, it could be similar, but I feel like we know Will Ashcroft's a gun, and if he gets going with that fixture, I'm happy with that, Kev. It's fine, mate. No problems there at all. Start 2 at a Driscoll, Nevitt or Sardis. So I'm going to say Sardis and nod just because we don't know if Nevitt's going to be the sub. I'll go that way because we've got to watch tomorrow because, as I said, Nevitt is named on that bench. There's a big chance. I think it's going to be Jai Clark, but it's not completely out of the question that they go that, especially the fact that it's going to be hot. Like, what's the temperature update for tomorrow? I think it's still 30-something degrees, 34 where I live anyway. So, the fact that it's going to be warm weather, maybe they just want somebody to come on a little bit later. I don't think Jai Clark's that guy, just to maybe give them a little bit of a buzz, bit of energy as the time goes on. And sort of looking at the other options down at Geelong, I don't think there's anything that stands out to me that's going, this is a guy that would be great as a sub who they got there. Ollie Henry, I expect to start anyway. Maybe it's Mullen's probably the 7th defender, so I don't think it's going to be him either. That's probably I think it's got to be him. Hey, Maverick, panic stations. Yes, a few people are like that. I'm considering downgrading Neil to Rosie. Yes, for 110K. Thoughts? Murphy Reid tempting me all of a sudden. Murphy Reid is another one. So that's why I've got Nevitt in there at the moment, because if Nevitt's named sub, I'll go Murphy Reid. But there's a chance Murphy Reid gets named sub. So that game tomorrow is crucial for us to be tuned in to see who's the sub. So the game's at 1:20 tomorrow. We need to probably be ready to go about 12:50 to check. That's Victorian time to make sure neither of them are named sub. And again, you look at that Freo bench, and it's Banfield, Johnson. Well, Johnson's definitely not going to be named sub. Warner, maybe Chapman, and Wagner. But they have named now. This is the thing. They've named Reed on the half-forward line. But just because he's on the half-forward line doesn't mean he won't necessarily be sub. Most likely, he's probably less likely than what Nevitt would, who was named in that 5th position on the bench. So I like the fact that I've got Nevitt there. I can free up a little bit of cash to go Murphy Reed if that is the case and that happens. So just one to watch. So, I don't mind it. The fact that he is currently named at the half-forward line, it's giving me some confidence that they want to play him, and maybe even as that 5th guy with Johnson as the 4th and him as the 5th while Young is out. Appreciate Supercoach Pro. Loving your work too, mate. There are 55 players named to play under 210K in less than 3 games. Seems high. It does, actually. And we probably didn't want so many named this early too. Like, it's kind of freakish how many of these sort of came out, and because all of a sudden we want downgrade options as the season goes on too. So a little bit frustrating there, but at the same time, it's sort of good too, because it probably makes our teams kind of all different. So kind of nothing wrong with that either. So it's kind of interesting that's the way it sort of worked out. Harvey, I've taken out Day and Merritt and brought in Rosie and Dawson. I'm so torn. So I don't like the Merritt one as much as a few people have been trying to talk me into him. My issue with that is the fact that he obviously has the bye. But the guy's a superstar. Again, he's my favourite player down at Essendon, so no problems there. But I get it, because Rosie probably going to deliver similar. Like, Cripps was tagged last night. Now, we know Cripps is a beast and is a gun, but he was tagged last night and still went 120. McIntosh probably goes to Rosie. I don't think it's going to make that much of a difference. I still think Rosie's going at least 110, and if he really gets going, he can go nuts. And he's got the role for at least what's Butters, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, something like that, probably 6. So it's fine. Dawson, I'm not as fan of Dawson as much. A lot of people love the Dawson pick. It's not the fact that he's not going to get the ball, because he's the captain. He gets the ball, no problem. So I think he could still go 105, 110 easy. The problem is his disposal at the moment, and it's really been worrying me lately. So I'm not that on that Dawson one at the moment, because I really need him to clean up the disposal. Saying that, he probably hits every target under the sun against the Saints. It probably goes to 160, 170. So I still like it, because it's freed up some cash. And the fact that you've taken out the 2 buy guys, I think it's probably the better move. So hopefully that answered you to dummy my talk about short before. So they obviously don't give the halftime breakdowns on the Supercoach stuff, but I was obviously tracking it. It was messaged, especially at halftime. Actually, I had a little bit of hope at halftime. I was talking to some people around me, just going, if we just kick the first one, you just never know. But I'm like, but I was really interested in short score, and obviously I was tracking that, and that was the same with Nank. Like, both of them, funny that they were the ones that fell out of the game, and it was more the midfielders that ended up obviously picking up in the second half. Barney, hey, Sweets, first of all, how good were Richmond? Yeah. Do you think Connor Sutherland is a good rookie option? Yeah, I don't mind that. He's named on field. There's been a couple articles about him, a bit of talk also. I don't know if it was a radio station or one of the media went and said, high hopes on, I think, the 21-year-old, as that next sort of heir apparent in that back line. So if I can free up some cash, I don't mind that, and it might be part of the playing around with my side. I think that's a little bit with Sanders. If Sanders is the one that comes out for me, and he's the one that I'm probably at some point tonight or tomorrow while I'm on break, I'd probably go, you'll go on Sanders. It's probably going to be down to a Pal Pepper, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, cool. Let's just go O'Connell up to a Sutherland, and then I can sort of free up, and maybe it's a couple of my other 99K rookies up too. So that's sort of where I'm thinking there. So I like him. I think if he's part of that Geelong back line, especially tomorrow, it's going to be so hot. I feel like there's going to be a lot of chipping around that second half, because like Luke Ryan, probably to the moon tomorrow, because, how well are you going to be running in the second half if it gets to sort of 36, 37 degrees? So I think that, the halfbacks are going to absolutely feast tomorrow. I like Patton. The problem is Bice's name. So O'Connell, just because of the way the Saints players have been named. I actually think you probably have it technically in order, just because the guys are coming back. I like Patton because he obviously makes rearrangements and you can flip things around. But Bice being named has really got me some concern there, because first week I was like, okay, Bice isn't named, that's cool. They're definitely going with Patton. Had some early moments which were shaky, but he got himself into the game. But the fact that the way it's worked out with the naming, O'Connell, just because he's 40K cheaper than prior to, so you've got the right order there. Chabana, 2 for the, I've got to get 2 foot, the Logie Yum. Did I say that right? I hope I said that right. The most interesting takeout of that match was who stood up in the first half and the second half. 100%, 2. And the Blues players, some of them absolutely went to water. So, mate, like, I that's one game, and it'd be cool if, like, the Supercoach or the Fan Footy or whatever, they did that and actually put, here's your quarter-by-quarter breakdowns. We get it for the AFL fantasy. We don't get it for the Supercoach, because, and realistically, we needed it from that 41-point mark, which was about 15 minutes in that second quarter, to the end of the game and then the next 75-minute breakdown. Because that breakdown in Supercoach completely, it was like you're watching 2 completely different games. The Carlton players went off at halfway through that second. So we've done enough. We're bringing in the VFL players now. And it looked like it, because the Richmond youngsters ran all over it. So the breakdowns, unbelievable change. The big one was TDK. He was going well, but he went to the moon once Carlton started losing. So that's an interesting way around it, because I think he might have been, at the time, he was still pretty good, but he might have been 40-something around that period. So he was playing well, but Nate was obviously by then already on nearly 70. And then, like, DeConning from that period on, scored like over 100 points. So massive tick for DeConning. But yeah, some of the other Blues players who were just flying absolutely just went to water. Do you think Boyd will play the first 3 weeks? So that is the worry of those guys. I don't actually think he probably does. But then, does Archer Reed? Maybe. Like, who else do we have? Is that R3? Like, it's just probably easy to take Boyd there, because he's the 99K cheaper. And the fact that they have gone and recruited him for a reason. So, Marshall could always go down. He's the next guy. There's a lot of factors there. For 99K, he's just the easy R3. I think let's not probably overcomplicate that with too many other options. We've all gone off Reedy, so maybe it's only Archer Reed. That might be if you kind of like that. Ben, that's an awesome one. I was talking about this before with somebody. What's he, 270K, I think, in the forward line. So my boy Hutchinson, because I really like him, at about 230. And that's one that I could go down to. A couple of people getting critical, because I did say to one, instead of Sanders, I'm just going to Hutchinson. But Bailey Humphrey could be an option for me as well. I do like both. They're both named in the guts, especially the Humphrey named in the guts with a pretty full strength Gold Coast lineup. I was just trying to have a look if there was anyone major missing outside. I think of, did Flanders actually get named? Because that was the only one I actually didn't have time to look through. But I don't think Flanders is in there, is he, because of that back injury. So outside of him, you've still got Rao, you've still got Took. It's a good one, actually. Where is Tukey on there? Is Tukey? No, Tukey is there. So the fact that, I think that they've got big hopes for Humphreys. So, 270K. I'd probably rather watch him for a couple of weeks, especially the fact that they've got the bye as well. But I don't mind that. Again, like the fact that Hutchinson, because of Yo being out, is being named in the guts, it could be good signs for him too. So I wouldn't surprise me if one of them ends up being one of those guys who ends up scoring a couple, 90s in a row and becomes interesting for us. But you can probably hold off on Humphrey, just, again, the bye, get another look, and then make the decision after that. Curtin or Corey Warner? I'm pretty big on Corey Warner. I did write about him in the Herald Sun the other day. I like him more than Curtin. So I think just the fact they've signed him for a couple of years, there is a role for him on that half forward line. It's going to be a slow burn, but I think they'll give him opportunities, and then just watch him get named for sub this week. But I think that's the sort of case. How are we going for time? Cool. We've got a little bit of time before the game kicks off. I am also mindful about that 7:40 start. If Ash at GWS, so there's another one, Ash. And Whitfield moves more to half back, like against the Pie. So at least we get the break. But Finn Callahan and, say, a Lockie Ash, if Lockie Ash comes out and gets 120 again and is just absolutely smoking his role in the half back, he's taking all the kick outs, all that sort of stuff, well, that is that option there. So we get another game at looking at short, and then we can make obviously that decision around that. So it's it's fine there. We've got some options if that's how we want to go, and that's a good call with Ash. I did talk about that the other day. Thank you for bringing that up, Michael. I've got Sarong over Neil like yourself. Do you have Brayshaw in your team previously? Brayshaw has not been in my team. I know he's in a lot of others because they want to save that 40K. I think Brayshaw probably goes better this week just on the away game. It probably suits him slightly more. But I think overall Sarong's going to be a slightly better averager than him. So that's why I've had him. But I don't mind both. If I potentially could find the money, there is some temptation to bypass Rosie, but I don't. I just really want to put Adelaide player. But I was playing around a little bit today to go, could I put Brayshaw in and just have Sarong Brayshaw? Because I feel like each week one of them's going to go off. So it would take out the heartache for me to go, hey, Sarong didn't have a great week this week while Brayshaw went off. And then the next week, Brayshaw only scored an 80, Sarong went 130. I think that's how it goes. So I don't mind both of an ownership. They have that kind of unique buy as well. So I kind of like that. Patton, Connor Suffolk, or Leak. Leak, I think, will be the sub. So big sub risk there. So got to watch that one. So let's rule him out. And then it kind of comes down to the others. If you've got the cash, I'd go Geelong, which is O'Sutherland. Then I think it's O'Connor just because the way it's named. Then Patton and rule Leak out. Am I mad to fade Sardis? No, you're not. You have everybody else. I'd probably like Sardis a little bit more than Ashcroft. They have pretty well already said Ashcroft will be the sub. He's a real sub risk. So if you've got the extra, 5-6K to get up to Sardis, that's probably where I'd probably go there, mate. The rest of it looks good. So no problems. Yep, I got that, mate. Yeah, you got there. That's fine. All right, let's keep trying to get through these before the start of the game. Do I trade Neil down to Day? I don't mind the Day pick. That's fine. Again, I'd kind of want to wait and see. He's got the bye. The only danger for me is what if he comes out and smashes tonight again, and then if I'm then I've got to bring him in a week before the bye. I don't really want to do that, but I'd rather just have another look. Like what happens if Cordwell runs with him? What happens? Like the draw coming up. The Blues not so worried about that the following week, but though Hewitt could lock him down. It's the week after that where we know he's getting Bedford, and Bedford's the best tagger in the game. So there's no getting away from that. And he could be good enough to work through it that day, but Bedford did an absolute number on Nick Dacos, and arguably Nick Dacos is the best player in the comp. Day, it's going to be a tough matchup for him that week. So that's kind of why I'm like, I get people who are starting Day, and obviously Abs has been big on this, saying, I'm picking him for the games after his bye, which is fine. I did all the projections about this the other day as well, about the fact that I think there's a world where Day will probably not go up too much cash. It's probably only 20K up to his bye. After that, he explodes. So if you're willing to risk the next couple of weeks, and especially that tag in the bye, no problems in the world. You could start him. And, how close does he get to Neil? The only issue with Neil, it's that draw. So next week they play the Eagles. They've still got the Tigers in that. So they do have some really good games. So it also depends what you're doing with your cash, Vic. If you're not doing anything with it, it's useless. But if there's something else which you can get a massive upgrade, that's a completely different story. Probably should go to this one. Thank you so much. Fatty, awesome. Appreciate it, mate. A lot of love for you, buddy. Awesome. Feel free. I hope you've got a question in there, mate. You do, so I better go to yours. No offense to everyone else, but he's paying up for it. So I've got Boxshell, who would only be for Loop. The problem with Boxshell is the fact he's not named this week. When is he going to get named with all the St Kilda players coming in? So I've just I get the loophole. I get it. But here you're going to have this non-playing player for a while. So it is a bit of an issue. So it's just something I would probably leave alone. Curtin versus Kako. So I like that. Or pick one. I'm slightly on the Warner. It depends on sort of your makeup of the forward line as well. But Kako's not too bad because of that option in the in your forward line for the loophole that week. And I do like him for job security. I've kind of been playing around going, do I just quickly throw him in for Connor Stone? Because I am kind of worried about the and maybe just downgrade Sanders right now. How long have I got? 10 minutes to make that move. So I think Kako some weeks is going to be awful. Some weeks he's going to be great. And if you've got the ability to loophole him, and the reason originally I was looking at him is because it does open up some loophole options for me. So I am kind of tempted, but I feel like the hard thing is because of these other options that have opened up. So, Hewitt at, 30K cheaper, Stone, who is cheaper, who we already know at least he's got a score in it. So we've got Davidson there. So he's not a must, but none of them are must. So if you're going to choose one, I'll go Kako, then Warner, then Curtin. I'm not a huge fan of the Warner one. I mean, the Curtin one, apologies. After your third go in a row, geez. Yeah, we'll get off the Tiger stuff for a minute. Would you feel more comfortable fielding Stone or Kako in the forward line? This week, Kako. Actually, no. Stone. See, the hard thing is, what if Leak isn't the sub and then it's Stone? So that's the problem is, like, in a perfect world, can you put the emergency on Kako? But geez. Yeah, maybe. Let's go Kako. But I'm not loving both. Like, I don't want either of them on they're both going to be on the pine for me if that's how I'm playing it. Silly to go Perryman over Clark. It's not silly because you've got the extra the value in there with Perryman. The fact that he's either going to play halfback or midfield. He's 150K cheaper. I really like Clark as a player. He could definitely get a lot of good cheap possessions tomorrow, so it's something that I don't mind. But it's the case of the fact that Perryman is cheap, and if Perryman doesn't work out, you can always move him on. But yeah, so I've got Perryman in there at the moment because I just think he's valued. Like, his break even's already come down to 62. Gets another sort of 90-ish next week. He's making some cash before we get to that stage. Swizz, can you please scroll? Oh yeah, sorry guys. Yeah, no problems at all. So I've had that on too long. So the forward line and flex, yes, Flynn has come into my side begrudgingly. I've been against that all pre-season, but yeah, so that's Horn Francis, Rankin, McRae, Sanders is the big question mark for me at the moment, and it's probably going down to someone. Then which is potentially like a Pal Pepper or whatever, because the reason there is that midfield. So we know Flynn's in the flex, so I can scroll up just a little bit here to talk about that. So because Henderson sub chance, Hasty, these guys could potentially be sub, and even Nevitt I'm worried about. So I need to be prepared to move some of these guys around. So Sanders down to a Pal Pepper, what does that make me? Give me 150K in the bank. And then it's, I can potentially get Langford or Lindsay or, really any of those guys. So that's kind of what I want. I want some money there to move some stuff around because at the moment I've spent all my cash. So I've tried to go, okay, what does my team look like with no cash? But now I need plans around all these sort of scenarios that could open up. And that's the one that's going out. As much as, I think Sanders goes pretty well for a few weeks, but that's why I like it. Neil M1, Damien, pot committed yet? Well, mate, if you believe in it, it's your side. Get on it. Yep, no problems. I did there. Sorry, did I miss a couple of questions there? No. All good. I want to fade Kako, but don't trust Stone, and that's the problem there. Stone. Though I still think James Lake's the more likely one to. Hewitt also, like there's worries there too. So with 4 minutes to go, there's a part of me that's like, Kako's just so highly owned. I probably should nearly get him back in here. Scottfather actually just messaged me then, and he's like, I love your team, Swizz, and that. He goes, yep, but I'm a tight ass. I'm just not on Bailey Smith at all. Saying that, as I said, I probably want him at some point, but I just need to see a couple of weeks of it and get him back. It's going to be hard. I want to see how his fitness is, his movement for the ground, so it's all that. Kako to Hall, potentially. The problem is, I've said this before with St Kilda, so many players coming back in, so I'm not as confident with that. I'm more confident on, say, a Hewitt pick, but who do the Eagles? So it's Hewitt, Brockman, Long, Marriage, Dewar. They've got players that actually could be the sub, and I know how much they like Hewitt. They see Hewitt as somebody who can run through that midfield, where I think like Brockman and Long are both pretty well the same player. So I think they go Brockman and they probably have Long. It'd be funny if kind of play both. Marriage they kind of like is that extra defender, and then you've got Dewar, who's another small forward. So then one of those small forwards is going to be the sub. So I don't see it being Hewitt. Who we got here? Sanders could go okay. Yeah, Sanders could, but this thing is like 70, 80. Like, That's my worry about it. Like his break even's still at 63. I'm like, yeah, cool. He probably goes 80. I can get nearly probably the same thing out of Pal Pepper for a couple of weeks. So Scott, like, where is his weapon? Yeah, Richards, yeah. And that's the thing. Sanders, Richards, they could go well against North, so no problems. My advice, don't overthink the rookies last minute. Yeah, pick those on field every year. There's always a couple, and every year it is actually something I've probably got right the last couple of years, which is good. So it's I probably do overthink it a little bit, just who's coming in. We've got a couple minutes before the game, so I'm going to nearly end this off because I want to see, obviously, to see the start. Michael, you think Sid Draper will be the sub? I thought Curtin would be, but I was told news about Rob was saying Sid Draper was apparently going to be the sub. Don't know how true that is, but it's either going to be him and Curtin. So that's why you got to kind of wait and see. And I like the setup. If you like Draper, put Draper in and have the plan to go Langford or Lindsay if one of them aren't named sub, which is probably most likely one of them aren't going to be named sub. So you've got the option to go down, which is a really easy situation for us. So that's how I think there. Guys, good luck. It should be awesome. Looking forward to the Bombers and the Hawks. And, we'll talk soon. Bye.